I spent the first few weeks after the Paradise campfire, like most of us in Chico. We worried about friends, and for some of us, family. We helped at food and clothing depots. We assisted people wandering the streets who asked for directions to the post office or to East Avenue. We learned about the joys of wearing N95 masks when outside in the glimmering of the midday night. As we walked through town, mostly we stayed home, fretting and reading or watching television. Some of what I'll convey to you this morning is difficult for me to say, and I suspect might be more difficult for others to hear. I apologize and hope you'll stay with me, but if you need, please feel free to step away. Nothing bad happened to me, and yet, like most of us, my life was permanently altered just a bit. I was sitting at Jack's restaurant with folks from our fellowship at our usual Thursday morning's men's breakfast. We just learned that there was a fire burning on the ridge and became concerned that a stalwart member of our happy few had not made it to the restaurant that day. It was not until I was riding my motor scooter up the Esplanade that I realized I was in an unending and slow-moving convoy of cars. They were all dirty gray in color. Many had body damage, and the bumpers of some of them had melted. I felt out of place in this sad fleet and was happy to make it home safely. One evening a few days later, I saw on the internet a video of a family desperately leaving Paradise by car. Taken from the back seat, the image showed fires destroying businesses and then displayed a forest of trees on fire, some of which were lapping at the windows of the car. I could hear the crackle of the fire and the frequent explosion of propane tanks in the near distance. The camera waved wildly from side to side, showing the closest fire, first on the driver's side, then on the passenger's. Sometimes it showed a wavering image through the windshield filled with dense smoke that obscured everything beyond a car length. While this was fascinating, it became mesmerizing when I realized that the woman in the front passenger seat was praying. I'd never heard a prayer anything like this. She did not pray for safe passage. She did not pray for forgiveness of her sins and the promise to lead a blameless life. She did not pray that her children in the back seat would be safe. She did not pray for these things or for anything else I could imagine anyone praying for in this situation. The prayer to her Heavenly Father was a prayer of gratitude. She thanked him for the calm courage of her husband as he navigated through the fire and smoke. She thanked God for the protection of the windows of the car that kept the fire out. She expressed gratitude for the engine that kept the car running when it probably should have melted or at least quit. She did not look beyond their current situation, but basked in the blessedness of being alive with her family. I watched this video many times over the next few days and weeks, always with amazement at the great power of the woman's prayer. I saved it and could probably find it if I needed to. The message has become firmly embedded in my soul, and I try, frequently without success, to remember and live its meaning. When I make mistakes that prey on my mind, when I can't relieve the numbing pain in my neck and shoulders, when my thoughts don't come quickly enough, or when I'm in the hospital, I offer a silent prayer of gratitude to the universe for being exactly where I am and for who is with me.
Beloveds, let us breathe together. I'm going to invite us to do that again and pay attention to our bodies. And if necessary, I invite us also to use I am here now. If any heart poignant memories have come up, let's breathe again. And I want to thank TW for his reflection, because that reading today is a very powerful example of one way we can do hope and live gratitude. The reflection honors the gratitude of naming all that supports us in the midst of a highly traumatic event. And this is beautiful. And in all honesty, beloveds, this is at least master's level, if not PhD level gratitude. Practice. Most of us don't start there. Practicing gratitude in the present moment and love are beautiful, and they're beautiful spiritual practices, and we have to do the practice. To be able to do that gratitude, to live that gratitude in the hard times, we start today, now, with little things in our daily lives. So the message today is inspired by and based on a book, Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy, by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone. An entry-level way to build this type of gratitude and active hope is in the reflection work of the spiral of the work that reconnects. It has 4 steps: coming from gratitude, honoring the pain in the world, seeing with new eyes, and going forth. And I love that this is imagined as a spiral. That spiral image actually I got to make with the AI-assisted artistic programs, because that is so way above my skill level, but super cool. So the spiral is a sacred symbol in many traditions. And to me, in this work, it represents an expansion of the self, of the interest of what happens in life. We grow, and the definition of our self is the opportunity to grow with us. But beloveds, it's an opportunity. It only happens if we do the work. To grow from an ego or the individual self to a communal self with the work we do here, to an ecological self, we're recognizing the whole of all life and existence, as Arne Ness described as the self as all life on earth. We talked about the ever-expanding circles before in one of our children's stories a few months ago, going from me to family, given or choice, to friends, to community, to local, to regional, to national, to all humanity, and then all life, and even the earth itself. The spiral of the work that reconnects use similar tools, but what I love about it being a spiral is it never starts in the same place twice, because I am not the same. You are not the same. We are not the same every time we enter into the spiral. The practice works, the experience is different, and the learning never has to stop. Every time we do the work of reconnection, it reminds us that we are larger, stronger, deeper, and more creative than we realize. We can use this spiral and other simple gratitude practices, like a gratitude journal. And in a moment, I'm going to ask if anyone has a gratitude practice. I actually have a few. And one is our family grace. At the ordination, there was an opportunity to have seen the family as they are. And the 4 of us ritually say, I am grateful for family, friends, and food, and then 3 specific things from the day. Now, we've been doing this for years, so I don't have anything from the day is never gonna fly, because you know this is coming every day. And that's the practice, right? So it can be anything that brings a smile to your face, that was pleasurable. And on hard days, it can be that I was accompanied through something that was really challenging. Sometimes it can be the relief of a burden. It's not toxic positivity, right? And I really want to name that because I think that's really important. I wonder if there are any other gratitude practices in our community that people would like to share. Acknowledging the day with gratitude on awakening. Thank you. Holding hands for a moment of silence and in gratitude at a meal. And I also love that that was shared within our community, right? That's a beautiful, that's a second step, because that's also acknowledging those that support us in our growth, in our gratitude, right? I love that poem. Welcoming our feelings as guests, even if they destroy the furniture. Thanking the birds for coming to visit as we check our bird feeders and make sure that we continue our part of the circle. Thank you, beloveds. Those are really beautiful. So, oh, I'm sorry. And gratitude that our beloveds did not burn in the fire and are here with us today while they lost their possessions. I'm going to stop and pause. Let's breathe together. We hold that together in this moment. Beloveds, let us try a gratitude practice now. Something like this could be used in a journal, or it can be used with a partner. Today, we're going to try sharing just one of these sentences with a partner, and just start at the beginning of a sentence and see what that you choose and see what follows. Now, just choose one, because this is supposed to be a message, and I can send these out on email if you wish. But if you can look to a partner next door, pick a sentence and start with one and see where it goes. Please make sure both partners have had a chance to share. And I'm noticing our conversations are starting to fade. If you're still sharing, please bring it to a conclusion. Thank you, beloveds. So while I'm focusing on gratitude and active hope today, this open sentence practice can be used to explore a variety of emotions, as was lifted up earlier, right? They can explore concern, grief, fear, loss, and even things we tend to avoid. And that can be really important. The same sentence can be used over and over again to explore deeply held or sometimes unexamined thoughts or feelings. And all of these feelings are important, beloveds. Avoidance can become a cultural phenomenon, leading to that false peace or avoidance of tension or conflict that Rev Alex described last weekend. And beloveds, we don't subscribe or strive for a false peace. This community strives for justice. Fears that are unfaced can become storied, and it's really important that stories are really huge for who we are and how we make meaning of the world. So if they become storied as unfaceable, then people can emotionally shut down, and our ability to effect justice can be challenged and diminished. This is where we need a supportive environment, like this community, and the spiral of work that reconnects. Active hope involves identifying the outcome that we hope for, and then playing an active role in bringing them about, regardless of the possibility of outcome. Can we see the connections between active hope and engaging our emotions and feelings and the gratitude practices that we've been talking about? So if I return for a moment to TW's beautiful reflection, the prayer that moved him so deeply wasn't for deliverance. And that's not active. And the prayer wasn't full of despair. That isn't hope. That prayer was gratitude for what was supporting in that moment. Her husband's strength and focus, the car continuing to run, and more. The prayer was focused in this moment, not in the past and not in the future, and the actions that bring about the most desired outcome. That is such a beautiful and powerful example of active hope. The authors describe active hope in a poem that I've excerpted for us today. Active hope is not wishful thinking. Active hope is not waiting to be rescued by the Lone Ranger or some savior. Active hope is waking up to the beauty of life, on whose behalf we can act. We belong to this world. The web of life is calling us forth at this time, and we've come a long way and are here to play our part. With active hope, we realize that there are adventures in store, strengths to discover, and comrades to link arms with. And now, beloveds, did I say it would be easy? No. Beyond responding to moments of disaster, active hope can help us face the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times that we have talked about before and I named earlier today. This practice helps us face situations where the outcomes are so far from certain or even possibly likely. Active hope helps us not settle for what seems attainable and isn't sufficient, but to work for the transformative change that is needed. And there are so many big problems at this level right now, including so much war. And while I have no confidence that many of the things I actively hope for will resolve in my lifetime, it is my obligation to try. It is my honor to go forth with gratitude and active hope. I actively hope for racial reconciliation, environmental justice, the survival of the earth, and the end of war and an active peace. The author's ground in the Great Turning, which is a shift in consciousness of our relationship with the earth. I practice gratitude for these sages and so many others that I have learned from in the wisdom of multiple traditions that highlight these transcendent truths. I have had to learn from the world's pain, and some of it was obvious. Other pains were less clear, and there was an uncovering that I needed to see. And that has been a powerful and honestly sometimes painful education. Suffering is part of life. But it gives us the power of story, of sharing lived experiences different from our own, and that can be really transformative. It is a gift. And since making meaning in the world through the lens of our experience, we learn of experiences that are different from our own through story, and we gain the ability to see the world with new eyes. And finally, beloveds, what is seen can't be unseen. This practice helps us face difficult things and stay engaged, and finally discern what brings the most love as we go forth and do the work. Much of our society drives us towards materialism rather than gratitude, but it wasn't always this way. The authors share that in the last 50 years, we have used more natural resources than the rest of human history combined. That's a lot of history, and that's a lot of resources. This is the manifestation of the age of humans, or the Anthropocene, as has been spoken of in a previous summer service. I'm happy to talk about that more, but it also could be another message all on its own. Through technology, we are more connected than ever, and there are more of us than ever. And yet, beloveds, we are in an epidemic of loneliness, isolation, fear, and loss. And I believe this needs a paradigm shift where we center gratitude, hope, and thanksgiving in our daily practices over individualism, materialism, and perfection. Let us pause and think of something we have accomplished. I'm going to ask you a few questions to reflect on. Who helped you accomplish it? Who supported you with time and resources? Who did something else that had to happen so you could do that, what you accomplished? As we peel back that onion, beloveds, our interdependence becomes really clear. Our indigenous siblings, the Haudenosaunee, who European colonists call the Iroquois Confederacy, have shared their basic call to consciousness with the United Nations. It is an expression of gratitude and interdependence in connection with the web of life to the sibling level and more. And the words of the basic call to consciousness are, and I quote, the words that come before all else. They are deeply embedded in routine life. And I think that's a powerful wisdom. Now, I'm not saying we should all start doing the call to consciousness, because that's a piece of their culture that while they have shared it, the wisdom to practice gratitude, I think is a call, and it's a call that transcends many different cultures. So I'm going to offer one more gratitude practice, and I love that this one can be done at any time of day. Notice something in the last 24 hours that pleased you, that was great, that you're grateful for. Savor, imagine that moment again. Notice everything, colors, tastes, sounds, pay attention to your body. Where was there tension? Where were you relaxed? As if you are re-experiencing, imagine that moment and give thanks. Give thanks to those who helped make that moment happen. This helps us practice both deep appreciation for what happened and offer attribution to something beyond ourselves. Deep appreciation encodes the memory deeper, and every time we access a memory, we change it. And by intentionally focusing that attention on the experience, we can deepen the detail in the memory. Remember, beloveds, neurologically, that which fires together, wires together, right? Attribution builds connection, decentering the ego. And beloveds, I invite you to think about how this practice can be that powerful treatment in that epidemic of loneliness. It's part of what makes gratitude a social skill and enhances our resilience and helps us face disturbing times. There's another connection, and that is to trust. Within our society, our trust levels are really low. The rates of people who say that other people are generally trustworthy have dropped by 50% in the last 30 years. Ouch, right? This is part of where I believe our particular tradition, Unitarian Universalism, has something to offer. Covenant. We congregations covenant on how we will be together. And with this structure, we can build a container for trust, agreed upon boundaries, and create the opportunity to build power with, or synergy, to link arms as we go forth, in contrast to power over or domination. Beloveds, every service I open with, how we are together is the ministry of this congregation. Has anyone ever noticed that I don't tell you how you are together? That's for the community to decide. You started this powerful work before I joined the community. You have a beautiful mission. We're going to be talking about your vision. And your board also offered a draft covenant of right relations. And it's going to come for a vote in your annual meeting in May. And beloveds, I either invite you to look at the slide or at the poster behind the AV booth, whichever is more comfortable for you. And if you would like to say the words with me, I invite you to do so. The Covenant of Right Relations. We, the members of UUFC, covenant to respect others, their persons, ideas, and spiritual theological beliefs. Speak the truth with love, care, and sensitivity. Listen carefully, respond with respect, and act with kindness. Thank you. Beloveds, in conclusion, when we agree how we will be together, it is easier to link arms and go forth. We create an environment that supports courageous interaction. And in our sharings of every service, the reflections that this community offers each other truly embodies courageous interactions. They have been deep and moving and powerful. When we practice gratitude in small interactions in our lives, we open ourselves to connections with appreciation and an attribution of joy. And through this practice, we can develop the resiliency to sit with and experience the pain in the world. And when we honor that pain, we change ourselves. The only thing in this world that we actually get to control if we change or not is ourselves. And when we change ourselves, we see the world differently, maybe with more nuance, maybe a little more complexity. I swear I am learning that if I think something is simple, that really just means I don't understand it. When we are ready to go forth and make change, we can do it in that spirit of active hope, which allows us to stay engaged and persevere when it gets hard. And I can promise it will. And when we make this our practice, we get to be happier. We get to deepen our relationships and change the world by changing ourselves. When we do hope and live gratitude, and when we do it in community, we answer the call of love and can create transformational change.